This is Marissa, and welcome to the second episode of FinTips, sponsored by First Ontario Credit Union. I'm here with Dave Skierman. If you caught the first episode, you'll know that Dave is a great source of knowledge when it comes to questions that we have about finances or managing our money. Dave is from First Ontario Credit Union, a local credit union here in the Niagara region, and he appears as the financial expert on Finance Fridays with CHCH Morning Live. So Dave, today we'll be focusing on debt. Now, I know we mentioned good debt versus bad debt, but are you able to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's something you owe and you have to pay back in the future. I mean, that might sound very simple, but it is very simple. Not only do you have to pay the debt back in future, but you also have to pay interest on that debt. So it's using your money and you have to earn more money to pay back what you owe. So debt is obviously not a good thing, and none of us really want to go into debt if we can at all help it. We want to buy things that we can afford with the money we have rather than have to go into debt. However, particularly when you get into big ticket items that we need sooner rather than later, sometimes we all have to go into debt, such as a car, a house, and things like that, generally we don't have enough time to save up enough for it. So we do go into debt for that. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts on debt. You don't want to go into it unless you have to. And when you do go into it, it needs to be things, and it should be for things that you need to buy and just haven't had the opportunity to save enough for.
Yeah, so it sounds like student loans would be considered good debt.
Yeah, anything that appreciates in value, like a house, is good debt. A student loan, I would say that it's going to appreciate in value because you're investing in yourself. So consider a student loan an investment in yourself. You're educating yourself. You're going to be able to get a better job in the future because of that investment you've made in yourself. So that would be like buying a house. It's going to appreciate in value. Your skills and your knowledge are going to appreciate in value and be more attractive to employers because of the time that you put into yourself. Definitely. And again, generally you don't have enough time to save all the money you're going to need for your education. So most students need to take at least some debt to pay for their education. So yes, I would definitely classify that as good debt.
Now let's talk a little bit about bad debt.
Well, bad debt is the opposite, but something that you don't need and isn't going to appreciate in value. I'll give you kind of a dumb example, but probably something that'll we can all relate to, buying clothes. We all need clothes. It's a good thing, especially in winter. But if you're borrowing to buy clothes, then you're going to have to pay interest on that debt, and you're going to end up paying more for the clothes than they're actually even worth. Okay. And the clothes, as we all know, don't appreciate in value. In fact, as soon as you buy it off the shelf and walk out the store, that clothing item has depreciated in value. So if you've got to buy for it, it's depreciated in value. You're going to have to pay interest on it. Not good debt. So it's bad debt. Bad debt, you could look at things like a vehicle, for instance, that depreciates in value. Same thing, you drive a car off a parking lot, it's going to depreciate in value. However, most people at some point or other need a car. So it's something you do need. You just don't want to go overboard and borrow more than you can afford to pay back, because then again it teeters on again becoming bad debt. If you need a car to get to work, obviously you might have to go into debt to buy that, but make sure you don't overspend.
Yeah, and now last segment we talked a little bit about credit cards. I take this would be considered as bad debt?
Yeah, credit cards, if you're using credit cards for convenience, using them for perks like rewards and things like that, emergencies, and paying it back at the end of the month, then it's really not debt at all. It's just you're using it as a payment method. But if you don't pay it back at the end of the month, all of a sudden you have a balance on your card. When your statement arrives, now it's debt. And interest rates, as you probably know, or if you don't know, everyone out there should know, interest rates on credit cards, it's almost like highway robbery. 19, 20, 21%. You do not want to pay that kind of interest on any kind of a debt. So credit card debt, no, is not good debt. You want to pay it off every month, and if you do have a balance for whatever reason, as an emergency, you want to pay that off as quickly as you possibly can, even if it means getting a student line of credit or something like that at a much lower interest rate.
Okay.
So credit cards certainly can be an evil if not used properly. And a lot of people get into trouble with credit cards, particularly when you start, get out of school and you start working. Then you can get approved for higher limits on credit cards, and you start buying things that you might think you need, and all of a sudden you're behind in your finances because of credit cards.
And it almost seems easy just swiping your credit card and forgetting about it. So I can attest to how you could accumulate debt on a credit card.
Yes, matter of fact, it's so easy you don't have to swipe anymore. All you have to do now is just tap.
Now, do you have any more tips or anything that we should know about debt? And also, I know that having a good credit score is important. So how can we keep that in good standings?
Absolutely. Well, in terms of some tips, understand any debt that you're in, even student loans. Understand what the term is, what the interest rate is, what the repayment schedule is, because you've got to pay those obviously back, and you have to meet your obligations. And we talked about budgeting last time. So when you're setting your budget, you have to now budget for a loan payment.
Yes.
And as a student, generally you've got some time after you graduate to get a job, in which you don't have to pay back. But there is a time, usually 6 months or so after you're out and you start working. Now you've got to start paying that back. So in terms of a credit score, we all need a credit score. It's very important. And the only way you can get a credit score, it's almost like a circle. The only way you can get a credit score is to have some debt and have a payment, have an obligation that you meet, and then you'll create yourself a credit score. Now, credit score is either going to be a good credit score or a not so good credit score. Now, the way to establish a good credit score, student credit card. We talked about credit cards. So, student credit card is a great way to establish a credit rating for a student, as long as you use it reasonably and pay it back. And again, the importance of a credit score, it's telling anyone that checks the credit bureau or your credit score, it's telling them something about you. How do you handle your obligations? So if you're going to rent an apartment, for instance, a landlord would often check your credit score, because that shows how you've been able to meet obligations. Even when you get out and are applying for a job, a lot of times an employer will check your credit score, again, because it shows what kind of attitude you have, and do you meet your obligations? Do you stick to your word? And that's what credit does. You have to stick to a payment and stick to your word. So credit score is very important for all of us, and it takes a long time to build a credit score. It's almost like a reputation. It takes a long time to build a good reputation, but you can come crashing down very quickly. So if you start missing some payments, your credit score comes crashing down, and it takes a long time to recover.
Thanks, Dave. These are great tips. If you have any personal finance questions or have any topics that you would like us to cover, you can email Dave directly at financefridays@firstontario.com, or you can reach out through Twitter at finance_Friday.